Hello, Jacksonites. Apologies for the delay. I wanted to have this video out last week, but me and my co-host's schedules just mixed like water and oil. But pray not, we are here to make up for lost time. Ironically. Today, me and good old Pierce from Cinematic Trash, make yourself known.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jacksonite Productions.
Alrighty. Me and Pierce will be discussing the quite much maligned sequel to the 1993 masterpiece with 1997's The Lost World Jurassic Park, once again directed by Steven Spielberg. So let's just jump right into our personal history. Pierce, go right ahead. After I crack open the sponsor of today's video. Go right ahead.
All right. If anyone watched the last video, I'm a big fan of Jurassic Park. I'm a big casual fan. There are bigger fans out there, but love Jurassic Park 1. So when it came to Jurassic Park 2, I believe I was a kid. I watched it like after seeing Jurassic Park 1. My parents showed it to me as a kid. I can't remember how much longer afterwards, so I can't quite remember how old I was, but I definitely was before the age of 10. You know what I mean? So I remember seeing it really young. The thing is, though, is that Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, for some reason, that movie is like the movie that I've seen the least out of all the movies in the franchise, other than Dominion and Fallen Kingdom. If those count, like sometimes it's like I think of those as their own thing, that trilogy. So of the original trilogy, Lost World is the one I've seen the least. And I can explain why that is. That's because the DVD set that I had, it's the 3-disc set with the first 3 movies, but for some reason my set,
The silver one?
I think so.
Okay.
Maybe, or no, it's the one where like it's like a digipack, but like there's no book. It's just like you open it. It's like a special looking DVD. Like it's not a regular case. Like you open it, like the inside has like pictures of the dinosaurs and stuff. Like I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it is that set. I don't know. But for some reason my set did not have the disc for The Lost World. For some reason. I don't know if I borrowed it from somebody or if I got it at a flea market, but it just didn't have the disc. So I had this set. So growing up for many, many years, I would just repeatedly watch Jurassic Park 1 and 3 over and over and over again. And Jurassic Park 2, I just would never watch until like I finally rewatched it like as a teenager. Like I was like 17 or something. Or no, I was 18. I was already a senior. I was like, oh, you know why I rewatched it is because it finally dropped on Netflix. And this was during the time when COVID happened, so all the theaters were closed except for like a few. And the theater I was
I
working
remember
at
that. Yep.
was the Ocala Drive-In Theater. And I remember there was a time when that theater was the only theater operating in the entire world, the Ocala Drive-In Theater. I was on the news for that. I was on the news because I worked there at the time. But there weren't a whole lot of new movies coming out, so the owner of my theater was like, "I'm just going to show a bunch of old stuff, right?" And that inspired. Once he started doing that, that inspired Regal and AMC and all these other theaters to start showing older films during the pandemic. So if people really wanted to go to the theater in public, they can. But they'll be watching Wizard of Oz or Jaws. And Jurassic Park 1 and 2 came out. I don't know if 3 was ever shown in theaters, but I Jurassic Park 1, and I was working and Jurassic Park 2 was playing, and I'm like, wow, I have not seen this movie in like 10 years. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I went home and I'm like, oh, it's on Netflix. Why don't I give it a watch? You know? And then I rewatched it again with my ex-girlfriend like last year. So
Is this the one I talked to that one time at work?
yeah.
Mm, have to tell me why she became an ex.
Oh, not on the live stream.
Yeah, later
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
Okay,
later.
that's fair.
Yeah, I got you. Put me on the spot, Nick. Hey, hey, hey. But
Okay.
yeah, that's my history with the film.
Okay. So before I get into my personal, well, here's a little preface. So right off the bat, viewers have heard me say this before. There is a collection of sequels that I have that the Lost World is a part of. And the Lost World represents a different kind of sequel. It's kind of an unofficial fourth sequel. So as I've said, the first kind of sequel is one that's just a carbon copy of its predecessor and is just not as good. Like Die Hard 2, for example. That's the biggest one that comes to mind for me. Another one is the rarest of all sequels, where it's like the perfect blend, where it feels like a natural continuation of its predecessor, and it's debatably better than its predecessor, like Aliens or Terminator 2. The third kind is one that's so drastically different from its predecessor that it is just kind of unrecognizable and it doesn't feel like it's in continuity with its predecessor. Excuse me.
Holy
Sorry.
crap, Nick. Chillax.
And then the fourth kind is, it's kind of a weird one. It's a sequel that does a lot of good things that a lot of those really good sequels do. Like it does feel like a natural continuation. It carries over a lot of elements from the first film in order to feel familiar, but it still expands on the lore of the franchise. But for whatever reason, it's just not quite as solid as the first movie. And The Lost World is the number one example of the four that I have in mind. The other three, ironically, the other two of them, well, all of these are number two sequels, but three of them are Universal films. The other three being RoboCop 2, Jaws 2, and The Mummy Returns. Along with The Lost World, these are the four sequels that I can think of that fall into that category where they're not as good as their predecessors. Pardon Roman. But in my opinion, at least, all four sequels are still very good movies in their own right and should be considered to, be good, solid movies on their own basis. And that's where I fall into on the likeness for the Lost World. So, jumping into my personal history, it has a lot in common with The Mummy Returns. With Jurassic Park and The Mummy from 1999, I saw those films first, and I was huge, huge, huge fans of them. Watched them a whole bunch of times. But then at some point, both of them disappeared from my life for a long stretch of time. Just like with The Mummy, Jurassic Park just escaped me. And kind of like with Pierce, I don't quite remember when it was that I saw The Lost World for the first time, but it was around the same time that I saw The Mummy Returns. So I think it was after my parents had split up. So I think I was about 5 or maybe 6 years old at the time. But The Lost World and The Mummy Returns, I saw around the same time, and I would watch both of these movies on repeat constantly for years for both movies because that's how long The Mummy 99 and Jurassic Park 1 escaped me. So I just clung on to The Mummy Returns and The Lost World uh like crazy because I wanted those movies back, but all I had available to me was The Mummy Returns and The Lost World. So I would just watch and watch and watch and watch and watch them like crazy. But then, also like with The Mummy Returns, when The Mummy 99 and Jurassic Park came back into my life, The Mummy Returns and The Lost World escaped me for a while. But when I was about 13 or 14, my mom and stepdad bought me a double pack of Jurassic Park and The Lost World Jurassic Park on DVD. So I had myself a Jurassic Park double bill. And this was the first time that I'd ever seen the first two Jurassic Park movies back to back. And it was a spectacular time. And over the years, The Lost World has always remained a big favorite amongst the franchise for me. The Lost World is a damn solid sequel, in my opinion. And I say much maligned because it is true. For a long time, what the hell's that sound?
What? Is it coming from my end?
Yeah, you're messing with something down there, and your audio is a lot louder now.
Is it
Okay.
the wire? It might be the
Okay.
wire.
Yeah, the critical reaction and fan reaction to The Lost World for a long time after its release was very mixed. Some people liked it, but said it wasn't as good as the first film. And I've seen a lot of people throw a massive amount of hate towards this movie. And since day one of seeing this movie, I've never understood why this movie gets so much hate. The Lost World, in my opinion, is a damn underrated sequel. And I've actually met some people who love this movie, namely Trevor Boy, who's told me that this is his favorite Jurassic Park film of the whole franchise. So, kudos. I see why. How does it rank amongst the franchise for you? I know it's the one you've seen the least, but still.
Like just like compared to like the first three, I'd say because I've seen it the least amount of times for nostalgia reasons, I guess it's in last place. Not including the sequels, Jurassic World trilogy. But as a solid film, then I think it is a better film than Jurassic Park 3.
Oh, by a long shot, from what I remember. Yeah.
So there's that.
Alrighty, so The Lost World Jurassic Park is a 1997, the year of my birth.
While you read this, I'm gonna step out for just a sec.
Okay.
Cool.
The Lost World Jurassic Park is a 1997 American science fiction action film, being the second installment of the Jurassic Park franchise. Of course, a sequel to Jurassic Park and being loosely based on Michael Crichton's 1995 novel, simply called The Lost World, was also directed by Steven Spielberg from a screenplay by David Coep. Jeff Goldblum and Richard Attenborough reprised their roles from the original film, with Julianne Moore, Pete Postlethwaite, and Arliss Howard joining the cast, and Vince Vaughn. Set 4 years after the original movie, John Hammond loses control of InGen to his nephew, Peter Ludlow. On the verge of bankruptcy, Ludlow intends to exploit dinosaurs from InGen's second island, known as Isla Sorna, with plans for a new dinosaur theme park in San Diego. Why do people keep thinking capturing giant monsters will always bring them money? It always blows up in their face. As a result, Hammond sends a team led by eccentric chaos theorist and mathematician Ian Malcolm to the island to document dinosaurs and encourage non-interference, although the two groups eventually come into conflict. After the original novel's release and the first film's success, fans pressured Michael Crichton for a sequel. Following the book's publication in 1995, production began on a film sequel, which filming of which took place from September to December in 1996, primarily in California, with a shoot in the island of Kauai, where, of course, the first movie was shot. The Lost World's plot and imagery is much darker than its predecessor, and it makes more extensive use of CGI to depict the dinosaurs, along with more life-sized animatronics. The Lost World was among the most anticipated movies of 1997. It was accompanied by a $250 million marketing campaign, which included a bunch of video games, comic books, and toys, as Jackie Boy is very much aware of. Released on May 23rd, 1997, the film received mixed reviews from critics who praised the visual effects but criticized the character development. Spielberg also expressed disappointment with the film, stating he had become increasingly disenchanted with it during production. Probably had something to do with the fact he was going through a divorce at the time, like with Temple of Doom, as I've come to be aware of. But
Lucas was going through a divorce, not Spielberg, during Temple of Doom.
Oh, okay.
Because Temple of Doom was so dark because George Lucas was going through a divorce, and Steven Spielberg was actually kind of diddling around with Kate Capshaw, which I think they are now married, or they used to be married, something like that.
Despite this, despite a larger budget, it was not quite as successful financially as the first movie, but still grossing $618.6 million worldwide. So it still was a fairly big success, and it became the second highest grossing film of 1997. I wonder what the number one was. Oh, probably yeah, it's probably Titanic.
Yeah, 97.
Titanic. It did also earn an Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects. And, of course, a sequel, Jurassic Park 3, would be released in 2001. Real quick, wasn't there... You had a little spiel about Michael Crichton being kind of pressured into writing the sequel book. You want to elaborate on that? Like, just what you told me?
From what I gathered from, like, hearing other YouTubers and people talk about it, I haven't really bothered to look into it myself. But the first book came out, like, the movie, the original Jurassic Park came out, like, not too long after the book came out.
The book was 1990. The first movie was 93.
Yeah, so the book was published and then 3-year fast track into a movie. You know what I mean? But because the movie was so successful, I don't know if it was Spielberg himself or the studio, they kind of pressured Michael Crichton into writing a second book for The Lost World. But the thing about the first book was that it's a very open and shut case. It's a very contained story. Spoilers for the book, certain characters, die.
John Hammond dies. Yeah,
John Hammond dies. Ian Malcolm dies in the book. So when
really,
yeah, like that's what I mean. Like, so when in the second
I did not know that. Damn.
In the second book, like, so they're pressuring him to write another book so they can make another movie, right? So, and in the book, Isla Nublar, that they nuke the island with a nuclear bomb, right? That's why there's a second island in the book, I believe. Yeah, but that doesn't happen in the first movie, so there's no reason to explain that.
Okay, fuck it.
But,
I need to read the goddamn books.
yeah, but basically, Ian Malcolm dies, but he comes back in the second book, and like the way they explain him being alive is this throwaway line in the book where he's like, "Oh, these doctors can do amazing things nowadays."
He was cloned.
Yeah, some bullshit like that. I don't know, but from what I've heard, I don't know if it's 100% true. The studio or Spielberg himself pressured Crichton into writing a second book. So the second book he writes, so he has to contradict and retcon like basically almost the whole third act of the first book, just so he can make this of the first book, so he can make the second book even happen at all. And then when they finally make the movie for Jurassic Park: The Lost World, it's not even like it doesn't really
Yeah,
follow the movie that much anyway.
yeah, it was all for nothing because so as we mentioned last time, the first Jurassic Park movie is quite different from the first novel. And this one, from what I've researched, makes that look tame because, as it was stated, this movie is considered a very loose adaptation of the second novel. Um, so yeah, it just kind of seemed like it was all for nothing. I'll bet you it was probably the studio more so that pressured Crichton into making a second book. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they're the ones with the money, you know.
yeah, probably. But yeah, it just ended up being for nothing because this movie is so different from its source material. So like if you really wanted a second movie, just make a movie.
Yeah.
Like
A lot of
Universal,
franchises have that first movie be based on a book, and then they make sequels.
look at
You know.
Psycho. You know, first Psycho movie based on Psycho, and then Robert
Well,
Bloch released Psycho 2, but
oh
then
yeah,
Universal
yeah.
said, "Nah, we're gonna do our own Psycho 2."
Well, Robert Bloch made 3 or 4 Psycho books. 3.
Psycho, Psycho 2, and Psycho House, as far as I know.
Okay. I thought there was a 4th one, but okay. Yeah. But yeah, Psycho
Yeah, you
House.
see what I mean?
Psycho House has nothing to do with anything. You know what I mean?
Well, you see what I mean. Universal are obviously not opposed to just doing their own thing with their own property. If they want to make a sequel to a successful movie, they're going to do it, if it's based on a book or not.
Right.
But yeah, with all that being said, I'm not. I'll probably trim out a little bit more of this movie's plot, but I don't know if I'll do it as much because the plot is pretty lengthy. Unless you want to jump back and forth between it, Pierce.
I'm not a read the Wikipedia kind of guy, so you can just go ahead and read it if it so pleases you.
All right.
Like I said, this is already a popular movie. I'm sure most people have seen it already by this point.
So 4 years after the events on Isla Nublar, this scene here is taken from the first book. I am pretty sure. I think it's actually the opening scene of the first book. A British family anchored their yacht offshore by the nearby Isla Sorna, unaware that the island too contains genetically engineered dinosaurs. Their daughter wanders off and is attacked by a group of Compsognathus. It was inspired by a scene from the first book, although in the book it's more fucked up. A baby is attacked by compies, which is something that I probably would have a very hard time reading. An ailing Dr. John Hammond, again played by Richard Attenborough, invites mathematician Dr. Ian Malcolm, again played by Jeff Goldblum, to his residence to discuss the incident. Hammond's company InGen, whom created the dinosaurs, is now owned by Hammond's nephew, Peter Ludlow, who used the incident on Isla Sorna to take control of the company from Hammond. Ian learns that InGen had another facility on Isla Sorna, which is called Site B, where the company's dinosaurs were actually cloned. However, the island was destroyed by a hurricane and abandoned, and the dinosaurs were released into the wild to fend for themselves. Ludlow wants to exploit the island's creatures to save the company from bankruptcy, so Hammond requests Ian to join a team that will document the dinosaurs in their natural habitat to encourage a policy of non-interference, which can't deny.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, very, very good idea. Which is something that I think humans as a species just need to learn. Sometimes it's best to realize there are some things you should just leave it alone. Just don't touch it. Let it be. And I think this movie is a very good example of that concept. Ian's girlfriend, paleontologist Dr. Sarah Harding, played by Julianne Moore, was hired and is already on Isla Sorna. And upon hearing this, Ian reluctantly agrees, but only to go to the island to retrieve Sarah. Ian travels there with Eddie Carr, an equipment specialist and engineer, and Nick Van Owen, played by fucking Vince Vaughn. I always forget that Vince Vaughn is in this movie. And it's funny that the next year, Julianne Moore and Vince Vaughn would reunite for the 1998 Psycho remake. Speaking of Psycho. Hi, honey. There's a woman's scorned face if I ever saw one. I'm sure I'll hear all about it. Let's see. Okay, Nick Van Owen being a video documentarian and activist. They find Sarah, but she insists on staying to continue her research. And Ian is shocked to discover that his daughter Kelly has stowed away with the team in a trailer, which serves as their mobile base. Which those are bitchin' trailers. I think this is one of the first movies that made me realize I would really like to own an RV. Ludlow and a mercenary team arrive on the island to capture dinosaurs with help from big game hunters Roland Tembo and Ajay Sidhu. Roland's second in command, Dieter Stark, played by good old Peter Stormare, and paleontologist Dr. Robert Burke, whom I think is based on... What the hell is that paleontologist's name? Jack Horner? Yeah, Jack Horner. I think he's loosely based on that guy. Malcolm's group realizes Ludlow intends to ship the captured specimens to San Diego to revive an unfinished Jurassic Park amphitheater that Hammond had abandoned in favor of the park on Isla Nublar. Does this sound like a good idea? No. Ah, damn it.
What?
Fucking shit. Okay, here we go. What are you handing me? Puffed Cheez-Its? I've never had these.
Pizza flavor.
Ooh. You just make me want Domino's even more. I know I just triggered you with talk of food. Okay, where was I? Okay. Nick and Sarah free the captured dinosaurs, and the animals wreak havoc on the InGen team's camp. On the way back to the trailer, Nick rescues an injured T-Rex infant that Roland used as bait to hunt its father. By the way, just real quick, the wailing, pained cries of the baby T-Rex to this day still give me goosebumps. Spooky sound.
Okay.
Fuck. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Oh, technology. Why must it be so goddamn difficult? Okay. Nick and Sarah treat the infant's broken leg, but the Tyrannosaurus parents arrive, having tracked the infant's scent. They reclaim their infant, destroy the trailer, and devour Eddie during his attempt to save the group, which I think is the best part of the film. Ian, Sarah, Nick, and Kelly are rescued by Ludlow's team and are forced to work together, both groups having lost all their communications equipment. They decide to travel to an abandoned InGen base to call for help, and during a break, Stark goes into the wilderness alone and is killed by a group of compies in probably the most disturbing scene in the whole movie. After the team sets up camp for the night, they are ambushed by the two T-Rexes. Burke is devoured, and others flee into a field of long grass where a pack of velociraptors ambush them, killing Ajay and most of the mercenary team. Ian, Sarah, Kelly, and Nick reach the InGen base and successfully radio for helicopter extraction while fighting off velociraptors. After being rescued, Nick reveals that he stole Roland's bullets to prevent him from killing his trophy. However, they learn that Roland has sedated the male T-Rex with tranquilizers instead. As more InGen personnel arrive, Roland declines Ludlow's job offer at the San Diego park, reflecting on Ajay's death and the morality of Ludlow's scheme. I've had enough time spent in the company of death, which is a great line. Okay. At the port of San Diego, Ian and Sarah attempt to convince Ludlow to abandon his plans, but the ship carrying the male T-Rex suddenly crashes into the docks in a scene that looks spookily reminiscent of Godzilla's arrival to New York in Godzilla 1998, the next year. Man, this really was kind of a big precursor to 1998 Godzilla, wasn't it?
In ways, yeah. But that movie was in production during this movie
For a while, yeah.
So
Kind of a coinky dink, I think. The crew is
parts of this movie was inspired in part by Godzilla in the first place.
True, yeah. We'll get to that later. The crew is found dead, and the Tyrannosaurus is accidentally released as it begins to rampage through the city. Ian and Sarah locate the infant T-Rex at the planned park and use it to lure the adult back to the docks. Ludlow tries to retrieve the infant within the cargo hold, but is injured by the adult before being mauled to death by the infant. Sarah uses a tranq gun to sedate the male before government forces can use lethal force on it, while Ian seals the cargo hold doors. In the aftermath, the dinosaurs are shipped back to Isla Sorna, accompanied by the U.S. Navy, while Ian, Sarah, and Kelly watch Hammond in a televised interview announcing that the American and Costa Rican governments have declared the island a nature reserve, thus ending the film. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere right after that interview, John Hammond died in the canon of Jurassic Park. So
based on what?
Something Jackie Boy told me.
Oh, okay.
How dare you? You tease. That's probably the same shirt. Because of your damn Ryan Reynolds boner. Okay, that's cool.
Well, yours is neither of those.
All right, Pierce, what do you think of this plot?
I think it's pretty solid, I guess. I think if you're gonna make a sequel to the movie alone, I feel like this would make better sense. It would make the most sense to do the story that they did tell. You know, like what do you do? What's something cooler that we could do in the sequel? Oh, let's bring a dinosaur to this to civilization, right? Let's see the instead of all the dinosaurs contained in a park, let's see them actually out in the open and in the wild, right? Now, like you're in their domain, sort of thing, right?
Mhm.
So going to another island, like they're like a backup island where all the dinosaurs there are now kind of roaming free and having to be in that environment, that's cool. Bringing the T-Rex to was it San Diego, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's cool. Um, and it gave the movie an opportunity to show more dinosaur species that they didn't show or really just glossed over quickly in the first movie. So I think they did pretty okay with this. I think they did a good job with with story wise, at least.
Hang on, I gotta shut my damn door. Oh, now we. Okay, there we go. Peace and quiet, relatively. Alrighty, so a lot of what Pierce says, I second. Um, like I said earlier, the Lost World does do a lot of good things, like in Aliens or Terminator 2 would do. This movie does, keeping the novel completely separate. That they may as well have done that anyway, because I know that this movie is very, very, very loosely based on the second book, so we're not even going to take into account anything that the book does, at least not yet. Uh, as a sequel purely to the first movie, this movie does feel like a very natural continuation. It does do things like, Aliens or T2. There's a lot of inverses and there's a lot of familiar carryovers from the first movie. And it does help that this movie has the same director, the same music composer, characters from the first movie that are played by the same actors. Um, the continuity is very strong, and um, and it does a lot of good things that really good sequels do. It showcases things that we didn't see in the first movie, partially because we didn't really think of it, but it showcases things that just feel like they make the most sense, like showing off more dinosaurs that have been brought back to life, showing them more in their natural habitat, showing humans being in the dinosaurs' habitat rather than the other way around, like it was in the first movie. And yeah, story wise, it really feels like part two of Jurassic Park. Not to say that the first movie, because the first Jurassic Park is very much like um the first two Jurassic Parks function a lot like Alien and Aliens. If you wanted Jurassic Park to just be a solo film, it works. Its story is very open and shut. Same goes for Alien. But with Aliens, it of course expands on the alien lore and showcases a lot more stuff that we didn't see in the first movie. But Aliens also ends the story properly. If you just wanted to stop watching the Alien series with just the first two movies, it works. Just like that, The Lost World and Jurassic Park go together like bread and butter. They feel like two parts of the same story, and they function very well as a duology, um, which is great. I love that. Again, it a large part of that is thanks to the fact that Steven Spielberg returned to direct this movie. Even if his heart wasn't fully in it for the most part, I still do feel like Spielberg did a great job delivering on a sequel. So, kudos. I agree with everything that Pierce said. Yeah.
Word.
So once again, Mr. Pierce did not write down any of his pros and cons, so I'm gonna have to
I mean,
go-
I got like I wrote some notes while while you were talking, So I got it's not like a full on list, but I got like ideas here.
Alrighty,
If I got
so
it.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I have 10 pros for the Lost World Jurassic Park.
Oh my gosh.
The
Okay.
first pro, this might be brief. Pro number 1 is the fun little nods to both Godzilla and the Lost World itself. Now, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. This probably is the closest that we ever will get to Steven Spielberg just full on making a King Kong movie or a Godzilla movie, but more specifically King Kong. Because this movie really does feel like a Kong film minus Kong. But I do like the fun. The rampage at the end does feel like a scene out of a Godzilla movie. Just replace Godzilla, scale it down a lot more, and just replace it with a T-Rex. And especially with those Japanese dudes running away from the T-Rex in the streets of San Diego, and they're speaking Japanese and looking scared and running away. It feels like a nod to Godzilla, and it's appreciated. But the nods to the Lost World. Now, I've never actually seen the Lost World, neither the 25 version or the BBC remake. I've never seen either, but I am somewhat familiar with the basic story of the Lost World. And what's that? The 25 version?
It is, but this is an excellent, excellent Blu-ray restoration of it. And the bonus features come with a bunch of short films that Willis O'Brien did.
Send me a link to that. Maybe I want to get my hands on that and check it out.
It's from Flickr Alley. It should be like $20.
Still, do it, please. Well, obviously the first reference, is the title itself, The Lost World. Obviously, that's what it's referring to. Wasn't the book also just called The Lost World?
The Jurassic Park book or the original book?
The Jurassic Park book.
It's called The Lost World Jurassic Park.
Oh, okay then. So then obviously Michael Crichton knew what he was doing too, making a reference to the movie The Lost World, which Spielberg also did in kind as well. But if you pay attention to the plot, well, it's not a complete adaptation of the Lost World's plot. There are some similarities between the Lost World and this movie. A group of hunters go to a previously unexplored part of the world that's inhabited by dinosaurs. They get their asses kicked, but they capture a dinosaur, bring it back to civilization. And in a reference more so to the 1925 version, the dinosaur escapes and goes on a rampage through the city. It is fairly similar to the 25 version. I don't think the remake was out at this point. No, it wasn't, because I think it was in the early 2000s. Yeah.
Well, there's actually quite a few remakes of The Lost World. There's one from like the 40s. There's the one from the 60s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Multiple television adaptations.
The one that I'm thinking of specifically had Bob Hoskins in it.
Oh yeah, that's like what, the 2005.
It might have been. Yeah, I think that aside from the 25 version, I think that's the most famous. But anyway, yeah, I liked the little nods to Godzilla, King Kong, and the Lost World. You can tell that Spielberg and Michael Crichton both knew what they were doing with those little Easter eggs, which is nice.
Yeah.
Pro number 2 is the great score. Once again, the music in this movie was done by John Williams. Of course, Steven Spielberg and John Williams go together like bread and butter. Now, again, it's not quite as good as the first movie, this movie's score, but it's by a very slim margin, in my opinion. It's just not quite as iconic. It's not quite as catchy. It's not quite as big and bombastic, but the music still overall is very, very good. There is some darker music on display here, which is very fitting. There is still that big sense of bombastic, epic action adventure feel, which is great. It does still again feel like peak John Williams, just him doing what he does best. Um, Probably my favorite piece of music of the whole film, and this scene has always resonated with me. It's after the trailer is knocked off the edge of that cliff, and Nick, Sarah, and Ian are hanging by that rope. As they climb up, once Sarah reaches the cliff, that music that plays when she looks up and she just sees the hand reaching out to help her and Nick and Ian up the cliff. That music has always really, really like it feels very uplifting. Like even though these two teams have completely different agendas, it is still nice that the team very easily could have left Ian, Sarah, and Nick to their fates, but they still decided to step in and help. And the music, I think, perfectly accentuates there is still a little bit of hope for humanity. Might be a bit of a reach, but that's what it's always told me or come off like to me. So I've always liked that music.
Hi, Jack.
Jack. Oh,
Jack in the comments.
Oh, okay. So yeah, what Jackie Boy is saying, I agree. Actually, the music is pretty Max Steiner-ish. Again, another sign that this is the closest we'll ever get to a Steven Spielberg King Kong film. I would so watch a proper Steven Spielberg King Kong. Any thoughts on the music?
I like it. I used to not like the music because it wasn't the classic Jurassic Park theme. But that's because
No,
I was
unfortunately, no. Like
that's
a
because
lot of
I was a kid, you know. But now, like as an adult, it's like I can really appreciate the music and how it was kind of like you can hear hints of the theme in there. You know, sometimes you actually do hear the theme, but like a different version of the theme.
the end credits music uses the classic Jurassic Park
Yeah,
theme.
of course, but it's like as a kid, it's like you're waiting the whole movie, you never hear the theme until the end credits, and it's like, man, you know. But at the same time, though, the music now, listening to it now, it's like this is some good music. John Williams, I think he's never missed a step ever.
Nah.
You know?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, though. Um, it's something that this movie has in common with Jaws 2, where of course John Williams did the score for Jaws 2 as well. And while it's good music, it's not as iconic as the first movie, but it still is good in its own right. And like with this movie too, yeah, they don't use nearly as much familiar music as they do from the first film, which at first is a little disappointing. But I too agree with Pierce that I appreciate that while it's different music, it does still feel like Jurassic Park music. And there are tracks that sound very similar to the first movie. So again, that just makes it even more so feel like Jurassic Park music. It's kind of comparable to what Brad Fiedel did with T1 and T2. There is a lot of the same music, but it's done differently, and it still sounds like Terminator music. Same case here. Yeah, the score is great. Not as good as the first film, but still good in its own right. You're going to hear us say that a few times throughout this review, just for the record. Pro number 3 is the island setting. I asked Trevor Boy this question earlier today, if one big reason why this is his favorite is because of the island setting, which if viewers remember, Trev has a soft spot for Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, Son of Godzilla, and Space Amoeba purely just because of the island jungle adventure setting. And I was right. That is a big reason why he likes this. And I agree. I love the island setting. It lends itself really good to this type of genre. Going into an unexplored island and discovering, oh shit, there's dinosaurs. King Kong 05 does that. The original King Kong does that. The Lost World, it's not an island, but it is still an unexplored part of the world. And that just lends itself very well to having a big kick-ass jungle adventure film. Throw in giant dinosaurs, it makes it even better. And like I said in my first review, or my second one technically, this island does feel a lot like Skull Island. It feels very familiar, but it still feels very alien. This is completely unexplored, dangerous territory that, oh shit. Pierce, you mind taking over for a second? I gotta take this.
All right. Well,
Hello?
just to finish off what Nick was saying, the island setting does feel very familiar to Skull Island. And I think Jack mentioned in one of his reviews, in one of his King Kong reviews, was that uh at least for the first Jurassic Park, I don't know if they filmed it in the same place in the Lost World, but Jurassic Park 1, it was filmed on the same island in Hawaii, the same area in Hawaii that King Kong 76 was filmed in. So, yeah, so in Jurassic Park 1 and King Kong 76, it's literally the same locations, you know. So that's why it feels very familiar in that sense. Moving on to other stuff, the acting, you know, all the actors do a fantastic job with what they got. I know I know some people might have an issue with Vince Vaughn, but you know, Vince Vaughn's a good actor, you know, depending on what he's in. I've seen him in stuff where it's like he shouldn't be in this, but I didn't think I had an issue with. I didn't think it was an issue him being in this movie. It's nice seeing Jeff Goldblum black. It's nice seeing Jeff Goldblum back, and it's nice seeing Julianne Moore in the film. And yeah, I like that there's a new island in general. You know, I think I probably mentioned that already, but just having a new island, Isla Sorna. Yeah, it's just cool, man. You know, it really gives the dinosaurs some breathing room. Um, what else? I like the production design. The production design it gives them. It's because they're creating new dinosaurs that we haven't seen since that we hadn't seen in Jurassic Park 1. So it lent the special effects and the production design team to take some time to create some new dinosaurs that we hadn't seen yet. And I believe like they were, I forget what they're called, but there's like a Pachysaurus or something like that. Parasaurolophus. I think that's what they're
What
called.
I miss?
Oh, I've talked about the actors for a little bit, and then I was talking about like the production design. So,
Okay. Pachycephalosaurus. That's the name of the dinosaur you're
that
thinking
was
of.
called okay. I
The
thought so.
dome head.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Not much to say though. But yeah, I like the island setting. But yeah, go ahead and finish up your thought.
I was basically finished.
Okay. Pro number 4 for me. I don't really have a whole. Well, actually, there's 2 characters. 3 actually. One is a nitpick. 2 of them are cons. But I'll save that for later. As far as the cast is concerned, pro number 4, the highlight of the entire cast is, of course, Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm. He is awesome in this movie. This is hands down Jeff Goldblum's best performance as Ian Malcolm for the whole franchise. He's only in, if I'm not mistaken, like 2 minutes in Fallen Kingdom. And he's good in Dominion, but all the legacy characters are kind of underused in Dominion. So that's something to be discussed when I review Jurassic World Dominion. But yeah, Ian Malcolm's fucking awesome. He feels exactly the same, but he also, something that's similar to Roy Scheider and Chief Brody's character in Jaws 2. It's all that same stuff, but he's more experienced. He knows a lot more about what he's dealing with, and he's got that PTSD edge to him. Maybe not quite as much as Chief Brody from Jaws 2, because at times Chief Brody's kind of manic dealing with the shark situation in Jaws 2. But Ian Malcolm comes off like he's just kind of bitter about the whole experience this whole time. Like he's going around saying, yeah, I got my ass kicked because of this whole dinosaur mess last time we had to deal with this. So, yeah, I'm speaking truth and you all are idiots and nobody is listening to me. Why is nobody listening to me? I've been through this before. God damn it. Why does nobody listen to me at all? That's pretty much what he's doing this whole movie. And he's retaining that same sense of smartass, savage truth that he was doing in the first movie. Taking dinosaurs off this island is the worst idea in the long, sad history of bad ideas. And I'm going to be there when you find that out. And then, punctuated later on in the movie, now you're John Hammond. Love it. Jeff is acting his ass off as Ian Malcolm. He's just throwing everything he's got into this performance. And it honestly might be my favorite performance that Jeff Goldblum has ever done in any of the movies I've seen him in.
You want to know what's crazy?
Though pure like emotional weight and acting wise, I probably would have to say his best work is The Fly, only by default. But this is good because Jeff gets to live in this movie. That's why I like this one more.
You know what's crazy though? I kind of disagree about Ian Malcolm. I feel like it feels like a different character in this movie than he does in Jurassic Park 1. I'm not gonna lie.
Care to elaborate?
Yeah,
Is it a con or
it is a con actually.
okay? Then let's save it for later. Then
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. I love Ian Malcolm. He's just absolutely awesome in this movie. As far as the cast is concerned, highlight of the film. Pro number 5. This movie is, well, actually, no, I'm going to save that because that one, the next one, and the next one all go into each other. But pro number 5 is the great selection of dinosaurs. One thing that this movie does that I love when sequels do is when they show more of the stuff that you pay money to see. Aliens shows us more of the aliens, both like more of their body and more of the species. With Predator 2, we see more of the Predator's arsenal that it uses to kill humans. Terminator 2, we see a lot more of the awesome shit that we see the Terminators do from the first film. With this movie, we see a lot more dinosaurs that were showcased but also alluded to from the first movie. Like, we saw the name Stegosaurus on one of the embryos in the first film, but in this movie, we see a fully grown 7-ton Stegosaurus walking around, and it's fucking awesome.
We see a bunch of them.
We see a bunch of them, yeah. We see Parasaurolophus. We see another sauropod. We see Pachycephalosaurus. We see Compies, little bastards. We see more Velociraptors. We see like a dozen Velociraptors in this movie. 3 T-Rexes, 2 fully grown, for Christ's sake. Yeah, they show a lot more of the dinosaurs, and it's absolutely fucking awesome. Their designs are all great. Not getting into the effects just yet, but no, the effects are great. Fucking fabulous in this movie. Yeah, there's just a larger variety of dinosaurs on display in this movie, and if you're a fan of dinosaurs, this movie will wet your whistle. Anything to add? Or I guess you already did talk about that.
Yeah, I did.
This will lead me into pro number 6 is the action scenes in this movie are very entertaining. I would actually say the action is a little bit better in this movie than it was in the first film. Mostly because I think there's a little more of it and the action scenes are longer than in the first film. Not to say that the first movie had bad action. Of course, it was all great stuff, but the action scenes were kind of short and sweet, which worked for that film. But, because we have a little bit of a bigger budget, this movie is a little bit longer, and we see more of the dinosaurs. That allows us a lot more time to enjoy the dinosaurs and enjoy the action scenes.
I feel like the action scenes in Jurassic Park 1 were just simply like more grounded, whereas the action scenes in this movie are kind of like they're not bad. They're still really good action scenes. They're just more over the top. Yeah, especially the RV scene. Like that's pretty darn over the top. Not gonna lie.
Yes and no. I say no just because I don't care. It's entertaining, so who gives a fuck? So the first action scene is when all the mercenaries are chasing down dinosaurs and lassoing and capturing them. It's pretty entertaining. It's also a little humorous to see dudes get just their asses kicked. Like when there's one dude who gets smashed clean through a car by a Pachycephalosaurus, and two guys who are trying to lasso up a fully grown Parasaurolophus. The dinosaur like yanks its head up in the air and yanks two dudes off the ground that is still attached to ropes. I'm not sure if this was intentional, but it kind of felt like a little bit of a reference to the Valley of Guanji.
It might be.
Maybe. Who knows? So yeah, that one's a little short, but it's still really cool. The music is fabulous during that scene. This one's also a little short, but when all the dinosaurs break out of their cages and fuck up the mercenaries' camp, mainly seeing that fully grown Triceratops tear ass its way through the whole camp, it's fucking cool. And it's a kind of a good jump scare too. And you got Ludlow just saying, "Oh yeah, this facility will be ready in less than a month." Boom! Here comes the big Triceratops tear-assing its way through the camp. You're just like, oh, fucking hell, what the hell's happening here? Then, of course, we have the equivalent of the T-Rex paddock scene, in my opinion, and is my favorite part of the whole film. Well, like once Nick and Sarah get to the RV with the baby T-Rex, fixing its leg, taking Sarah and up into the high hide, and the T-Rex is finally finding their baby. From that scene to when they're rescued by the Mercs after the RV goes over the cliff, that whole section is my favorite part of the movie, and is probably the best action scene of the whole film, in my opinion. It's tense, it's creepy, it's bombastic, it's harrowing. It's just fucking awesome from start to finish. Then after that, we have Dieter being attacked by the compies, which I'll talk about that a little bit more with another one of my pros, but that's pretty harrowing and fairly entertaining. From what I heard from Jackie Boy, apparently that whole scene was thrown in as Steven Spielberg's way of like getting some kind of retribution for Peter Stormare's character from Fargo, if I'm not mistaken. I have seen Fargo, And Peter Stormare plays a pretty despicable dude in that movie. The film, not the show. Then we have the T-Rexes ambushing the camp at night, which is also really, really entertaining. It's probably the most violent scene of the whole film, which we'll talk about that later. But that's entertaining and action-packed. Then there's the whole stuff with the Velociraptors, which is entertaining, but I'll talk. I have a little problem with that, but still, it's fun. And then, of course, the big scene that everybody remembers from this movie is when the male T-Rex goes on a Godzilla-style rampage throughout San Diego. Yes, it is very entertaining watching a fully grown T-Rex just tear shit up left and right. Tearing apart a street lamp, crashing a bus, killing people left and right, destroying a 76 gas station, fucking up cars, smashing its way through a building and chasing down his baby. It's fucking cool. It's very loud, very bombastic, very well edited, very just very entertaining. I love it. Anything to add?
Agree with pretty much everything.
What's your favorite action scene? Mine's the RV scene. Probably the San Diego scene.
You might be onto something about that. I know people don't like this scene at all. I think I've heard people say they this scene stands out as why they don't like it, but the scene where the girl does the gymnastics and like kicks the Velociraptor. You remember that?
Yeah,
scene?
I've never understood. I've heard that too, but why is that a problem? That
I don't. I think it's fine.
it's the only time that Kelly is ever useful in this entire movie. That's kind of a spoiler for one of my cons, but
I guess it's like. I mean, I guess it's a silly like thing that happens in the movie. You know, like it's
cool.
It's like I don't know. I guess the rest of the movie is so highbrow that a silly scene like that just didn't fit in for some people. But I think it's fine.
I think it's perfectly fine.
In fact, I think that's pretty cool that happened. You know.
And then it's punctuated by kind of a funny line from Ian. The school cut you from the team.
Yeah.
Okay. Pro number 7, 8, and 9 all go into each other. Pro number 7. This movie is much darker than its predecessor. This movie is much scarier than its predecessor. And there's some gnarly fucking kills in this movie. And I love it. Call me nihilistic, bitch. I don't give a fuck. But yeah, I appreciate the darker. This is the darkest of the entire Jurassic Park franchise, without a doubt. Not like literally, although this movie is pretty darkly lit for a lot of it. But it's kind of like the first Alien versus Predator. It's stylistically dark to create a creepy, moody atmosphere, but it's not Alien versus Predator Requiem dark, where it's so dark that you can't see half the screen. But like dark in tone. This movie is more violent. This movie is more gruesome. And it just feels a little more mean-spirited than the first film. But that makes the scares and the suspense and tension that much better, in my opinion. A big part of that is the concept that humans are technically now in the dinosaurs' territory. They are visiting alien turf, and the environment is not very human-friendly. So humans get their asses kicked in dinosaur territory, and I like it. It makes sense, but it's also very entertaining. And as far as the kills are concerned, yeah, there's not. Well, actually, there's a little bit more blood in this movie than there was in the first movie, but still, the kills especially in concept. Now, we do still have that kind of leave it up to your imagination stuff that we saw that Spielberg did in the first movie, but we do see just a little bit more of stuff to fill in more of the blanks that our imagination can't. Like, so to go through some of the kills, we do see Eddie Carr get literally torn in half by two T-Rexes, and it's punctuated by Eddie's high-pitched screaming when he's snagged onto by the T-Rex, and then that loud, like, kind of tearing, snapping sound as he's torn in half is quite shocking. Um, oh, the one scene in this movie that still kind of gets under my skin to this day, just because of partially because of how kind of shocking it is, but also like the concept itself is just kind of spooky, is when um Peter Stormare's character is killed by the compies. You don't see him specifically getting torn apart by the compies when he's killed, although you do see the compies like swarm him. They're biting him and scratching him all over his body, especially that one compy that's like snagged onto his upper lip and he's just trying to rip it off. But when Peter Stormare goes over that log and all the compies just swarm him, he lets out these, again, really high-pitched, shrieking screams, and then it goes silent, and then all you hear is the compies, like, growling and snarling and biting at him, and then you see this big pool of blood start oozing down this creek, and then you just know, oh, damn, they're fucking him up. It's kind of spooky. Like to really think about, like Peter Stormare, he's like 6'2". He's a trained mercenary in this movie. He's got a gun. He's got that the stun gun. But this grown man is torn apart by these little dinosaurs that are like only this tall and probably weigh like maybe 5 pounds. It's just kind of a freaky concept. This big dude is torn apart by so many of these little bastards. That's probably the most famous kill in this movie. There's a couple of, the two more that come to mind is when that, I think his name's Carter, when he somehow gets trapped between the toes of one of the T-Rexes when it's chasing after a bunch of mercs. He gets stomped on, and then he gets stuck to the bottom of the T-Rex foot, stomped on once, lift up, stomp down again, and then lift up and stomp down a third time. So he's just floating dead, squished into pieces in this puddle. And you're just like, damn, dude, he got fucked up. And then the last one that I'll talk is when Robert Burke gets killed. The group of people are chased in behind this waterfall, and T-Rex is trying to get at him, thrashing its head left and right, trying to grab him with its tongue. But then Burke has a snake crawl down his shirt. He freaks out and he runs forward. T-Rex grabs him by the arm. He's screaming and flailing, and then all you hear is this really nasty, wet, visceral crunching sound. And then you see some blood come down the waterfall. It's quite shocking. You're just like, oh, damn. Yeah, there's some gnarly fucking kills. I love, these are probably my these are three of my biggest 4 pros. It's darker, it's scarier, and the kills in this movie are pretty gnarly. Anything to add?
No. I mean, I like it for those reasons as well.
What do you think is the scariest part of this movie?
The scariest part of the movie, probably like when the T-Rex is roaming through the neighborhood, I don't know, later on in the movie, like that's pretty spooky. Like if you're just sleeping in your house and you hear boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean?
Okay, I see
Yeah.
what you mean.
But there's another spooky scene where they're at the dock and the boat's coming and the boat doesn't stop. You know. So
Oh
the boat,
shit! Yeah, that way.
yeah. So yeah, like the boat, like the SS Venture, as it is, which is a Kong reference.
I just realized that. Okay, there's another one.
Yeah. As the Venture crashes on the dock, and they're like, the police go in to investigate, and they're like, "Where's the crew?" And the officers are
All
like,
over the place.
all over the place. Like, yeah, oof. You know, that's pretty
Real
spooky.
quick, I do want to ask, how the hell was the crew killed? There's no way it was just the T-Rex.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Honestly, I was thinking about that too, and I'm like, huh.
I always kind of figured there was a couple raptors on board. Like maybe they jumped off the ship before it crashed. But like they saw dead crewmen inside the cabin where they steer the boat. That's
Yeah.
too small for the T-Rex to fit in. So how the hell did they get killed?
I can't remember if the ship's manifest, if they said in the movie what else was on there, but maybe they had like some pterodactyls or those little tiny dinosaurs. Like
Oh, the copies? Okay.
yeah, there's probably like if it was just the T Rexes, then it makes less sense. But if they had others on the manifest that were able to roam free, then maybe a smaller dinosaur did it.
Yeah. I don't know if there was maybe some cut footage that explained that or if it's just a plot hole, but
I think
yeah,
it's a
I
plot
don't know.
hole.
I don't really think about it much. It's not a big deal for me, but it is kind of a big question.
Yeah.
I think the scariest scene is the whole RV scene, specifically when the two parents are like hounding those people for their baby. Like when the scene when Ian uh after he says mommy's very angry, then he gets close to the camera and then in the background you see I always kind of thought that was the female T-Rex. She lowers her head down and then you hear that soft growl. They turn around and she starts roaring. Then comes the male. He starts growling at them. That scene when I was a kid always used to give me goosebumps. Like that whole scene, you're wondering, ooh, are they gonna get attacked? Are they gonna get attacked? Are they gonna start fucking them up? And you're on the edge of your seat the whole time. The suspense there is really good. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife, if you ask me. Um, but yeah, that's what I think is the scariest scene. My final well, what's your favorite kill, real quick?
Probably when the two T Rexes ripped that guy in half.
Yeah,
Probably that one.
because it's quite shocking.
Yeah.
Mine's probably when Robert Burke gets killed. The sound effect of him being chomped is just so visceral and gnarly. I love it.
Oh, doesn't Spielberg have a cameo? Doesn't the T Rex eat him in San Diego?
No idea. I don't think that. I know who you're talking about. That one dude who was trying to go through that glass window, and
Yeah, isn't that
I
Spielberg?
don't know if that was Spielberg.
It doesn't really look like Spielberg, but I mean, what does Spielberg look like in the '90s? I feel like that might have been Spielberg, but I don't know. I heard that that's supposed to be somebody.
Yeah, I
Somebody,
did
yeah.
too, but I don't think it's Spielberg. It was somebody though.
Was it Michael Crichton? Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, so my final pro for this movie is, of course, the amazing special effects on display here. There is a lot more CG, but there's also a lot more of the animatronics. Again, keeping up with the tradition of the first movie of having a very strong mix of both digital and practical effects. And in both cases, in my opinion, the effects are superior in this movie than the first film. Not significantly, mind you. Well, definitely for the digital effects, I do think this movie improves quite a bit over the first film. Now, again, like we said for the first movie, the CG isn't bad, not at all. Even the Brachiosaur at the beginning of the movie doesn't look terrible, but as me and Pierce discussed, it probably is the weakest CG of the film. But that's not really a big deal. But with this movie, all of the little chinks in the armor from the first movie are all ironed out. All of the CGI work in this movie is pitch perfect, top notch, 150% awesome. It's all very seamless, very well detailed, very well animated. It's very smooth, very crisp, very well done. I think Industrial Light and Magic returned for this movie, and it shows. All the digital effects are fantastic. The T-Rex look great. Velociraptors look great. The Triceratops and Stegosaurs all look great. The Parasaurolophus look great. Yeah, all the digital effects are pitch perfect, top notch. And of course, the practical special effects, all the animatronics and puppets, all are fantastic. Again, better than the first movie. Maybe not like in design or execution. I think it pretty much just is the same technology that they used for the first movie. But you can tell that they're a lot more comfortable with this technology. So it moves a lot smoother and it moves a lot more confidently, which is appreciated. And they also, up the ante. The first movie only had one T-Rex. This one has two. And if you count the baby, three. We see a lot more animatronic dinosaurs. We see the three T-Rexes. I don't think we see any. No, we do see an animatronic Stegosaurus, and the Stegosaurus looks fantastic. We see a healthy animatronic Triceratops, which looks awesome. We see the Pachycephalosaurus animatronic, which looks really good. The baby Stegosaurus is probably the stiffest animatronic, but that's fine. It moves only as much as it needs to, which is just its head and its mouth. That's fine. That works. There's some practical compies. Those look really good. What little practical effects we have for the raptors also look really good. It's just kind of like puppets for their arms and their heads, but that's fine. That's all they needed. Yeah, all the special effects, the production value too, the cinematography is really good too. This movie, like the camera work for the island especially is all really, really solid.
Well, that
Yeah.
guy we were talking about earlier, it's David Koepp, the writer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remembered it was somebody. I just couldn't remember who specifically. And it's surprising this movie had only a $10 million increase for its budget, but they must have really spent it pretty well because all the special effects in this movie are just top-notch, pitch perfect. Love the special effects. One of Stan Winston's best examples of his special effects. I love it. Anything to add?
Yeah, good effects. What else can I say? The effects are great.
So I have 3 nitpicks for this movie, and I have 3 cons. What do you have?
I mean, I don't have. I mean, these can be just nitpicks, but I have them listed under cons.
Okay, so let me get
But
my nitpick.
before we move on to cons, though, I do want to point out that there's a scene in the San Diego Rampage where they go through a video store, and you can see posters for the Arnold Schwarzenegger King Lear movie.
Is that a real movie? Or
No, that's the movie. That's the fake movie that Arnold is in the Last Action Hero.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen Last Action Hero, so I
Oh, dang. See, that's something Jack would understand. Or maybe I don't know if Jack's seen it or not. But
no, probably Shiny Boy.
they also have a fake Robin
Robin
Williams
Williams
post.
movie.
Yeah, there's a Jack and the Beanstalks. That's like
That's what it was. Yeah.
because the movie Jack with Robin Williams came out in 1996 or three or some in the 90s. Robin Williams did a movie called Jack. So now there's a Jack and the Beanstalks movie. And I think there's another poster in the video store, but I can't remember what it is because I can't find a picture of it.
Oh, I miss Blockbuster, man.
Yeah.
I kind of figured those were definitely the Arnold one. I kind of figured.
Oh, it's a fake Tom Hanks movie. It's called a Tsunami Sunrise.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't remember the name, but I do remember seeing Tom Hanks's name. It was probably no Castaway came out after this. Never mind. Maybe it was a Forrest Gump reference.
Maybe Tsunami Sunrise. He's like a surfer. It's like a surfer guy with Tom Hanks's face on it.
Alrighty, my first nitpick. The Velociraptors are probably my least favorite dinosaurs in this movie, but only because they don't really feel all that threatening. Like, of all the threats in this movie, to me, they lack the most presence. Like, they feel kind of tacked on. Like, just a last minute addition. Like, oh yeah, the Velociraptors were in the first movie, so here, let's have a scene where they fight off some Velociraptors. It's entertaining, the whole scene with the raptors, but as a kid, I just was never a big fan of this scene. It just kind of, although Kelly kicking one of the raptors out of the window and it getting impaled, it is cool. It just feels kind of tacked on to me. Of the original trilogy, the raptors, I don't know. It's kind of debatable with part 3, but. Nah, because at least they have 2 scenes in Jurassic Park 3. So I'm just going to say, I think the Raptors have the smallest role of the original trilogy in this movie. Although they do have also a pretty iconic kill where there's that one dude who's being chased. He turns around, he's holding up the same flashlight that Laura Dern had in the first movie. He's just screaming at the camera, and that one raptor just yeets himself out of the grass and just pounces on him and starts eating him. But yeah, the raptors just feel kind of superfluous in this movie. Nitpick number 2. This is easily the most minor. But there is kind of a filler human cast. Like, you can see there's a lot of dinosaur chow in this movie's cast. Which, I mean, you want to see that because it lends itself to having a lot of good dinosaur kills and some good freak out moments. But even like Robert Burke, he's just a paleontologist. Roland Tembo. I mean, I like the actor Pete Postlethwaite, but nobody really talks about Roland for the rest of the Jurassic Park franchise, and I think just kind of he's kind of just here. I feel like he was maybe here just so that Pete Postlethwaite could be here to give this movie a little bit more star power. That's about it. Like, there's just a pretty big fillery human cast, and you could just kind of tell he's not important or he's just here to get eaten. That's about it. No, this movie does have a good cast. Again, Jeff Goldblum, Richard Attenborough, Pete Postlethwaite, Peter Stormare, all decent actors. But yeah, just a very fillery human cast. And speaking of the characters, okay, so nitpick number 3. Nick Van Owen as a character is questionable. So they never do really confirm whether or not Nick is he's either an environmentalist or a professional saboteur. Um, although it is pretty implied that it's kind of a mix of both. Um, so I don't necessarily no, I agree with Nick being sent here to sabotage the crew taking the dinosaurs off the island. As we discussed earlier, just leave them alone. Leave the dinosaurs alone, just let them be. Let them do their thing. Keep your hands off. So I would agree that Nick sabotaging the cages and letting the dinosaurs run free, that's fine. Well, even then, that's kind of questionable because people surely got hurt in the process of that, but whatever. Shawnee Boy is a big detractor of this movie, and I'm pretty sure he's mentioned that Nick Van Owen is the biggest reason why he thinks he's an asshole. Specifically, the scene that he talks about is when the team is ambushed by the T-Rexes later on in the movie. When Roland goes to shoot one of the T-Rexes with his big Burt Gummer Tremors style elephant gun, it jams. So he takes out his bullets and he finds them empty shells. This is a dick move. Taking the dinosaurs off the island is a bad idea. Just leave them alone. However, the humans learned this and they're just like, okay, we're just going to go. We're going to go try find the InGen base and we're going to radio for help to have us extracted. We're just going to leave. Fuck it. We're gone. We got our asses kicked. However, taking away the ability for the team to defend themselves, especially with Roland carrying the one weapon in the whole film that is the most likely to hurt or kill a fully grown T-Rex, taking away their ability to defend themselves, that is a dick move. I will give Shawnee Boy that. So if you don't want him to, because Nick says this in the movie. So an animal that was killed off 65 million years ago is brought back to life, and the only way that you can show your appreciation is just to kill it. It is kind of messed up. But later on, he's just trying to defend his team from a 5-ton, 40-foot long lizard that's trying to eat them all. He should have the right to defend his team, ergo defend himself too in the process. But taking away his weapon, yeah, you're an asshole for that. Yeah, Nick Van Owen is questionable. Vince Vaughn does a good job playing him. And I have another kind of problem with him is that once he calls for help to get off the island, he just disappears for the rest of the movie, never seen again. Why? Was Vince Vaughn just too expensive? Or was he off doing something else? Maybe he left so that he could start shooting for Psycho. No, because then they would have taken Julianne Moore too. But yeah, Nick Van Owen is kind of a questionable character. I like Vince Vaughn. I like the character for the most part, but disarming Roland, that's a dick move. And now I have 3 cons. You want to add anything?
No. All I got are my cons. That's it.
Okay, you can go first.
All right.
How many do you have?
3.
Go ahead.
All right. So I guess the first thing I mentioned already is that I think Ian Malcolm feels like a different character in this movie than he does in Jurassic Park 1. And like I guess other people might call it like character growth, you know, but like in this movie he feels like you said, very bitter, like kind of overly bitter at times. Whereas like in the first movie he would smile a lot. He was cracking jokes left and right, you know. Yeah, he seemed more fun. In this movie he is very bitter and more serious, you know. And it's like that's okay, I guess, but he doesn't feel the same anymore. on top of that, in the first movie, he's coming from a place of science. Like they brought him because he's a scientist, right? He's a chaotician. But in this movie, they don't really go over his scientific background like at all anymore. Like he's not doing anything. Like yeah, the documentation of the science of the dinosaurs stuff is like, I guess that's a scientific expedition, but there's other forces at play that's lining this up, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like he's never coming from the heart as a scientist. He's just doing like a favor at that point. You know?
So I do see what you mean,
Yeah.
and in some ways I agree. However, I do have an explanation slash theory for why that is. Now, I do agree. Yeah, he's very bitter, and he does at kind of come off as overly bitter. I think that more so has to do with how Ian was treated after the incident at the park, because he says at the beginning, when he first meets, like after he meets Tim and Lex, which that was a nice little cameo. That was a nice little thing that even further enhances the continuity. We have the same actors who played Tim and Lex come back for a little cameo. But when he talks to Ludlow, he's like saying, I know I signed an NDA, but what you guys did on that island needed to be shared with the rest of the world. But when I told everybody what happened, you called me a crackpot, you damaged my career, you damaged my reputation, and you kind of fucked me over. So I think, yeah, he is kind of bitter, but I think he has a little bit of a right to be bitter because he took a huge hit professionally when he was talking about what InGen was doing, and InGen seemingly did everything they could to make him look like a crackpot and fuck up his career.
Yeah. But on top of that, though, even in the beginning of the film, where you're learning about like his character development and like more of his backstory, like women he's been with, stuff with his family stuff. He seems like a real asshole. And then on top of that, in Jurassic Park 1, he say he had 3 kids. But in this movie, they only meant you see the one kid, and I don't think they even mention his other kids.
Well, then in Jurassic World Dominion, he says he has 5 kids. So
yeah, so
I think that's just, you're just kind of getting lost in the weeds a little bit, though. I sort of see what you're saying, but they could have just chosen not to elaborate on where the other 2 are.
I guess so. I don't know. Like, yeah, like his kid, they keep arguing with each other. It's like he's never home for his kid or anything. It's like the guy seems like an asshole. Like what does he do? He's a chaotician. Like what does he do with himself? What has he been doing since Jurassic Park 1? If society isn't treating him right, wouldn't he be at home all the time? Like just being like, I can't go outside. People are going to be on my ass. He's not there for his kid. Like it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Or either that or he's a real asshole.
See, that kind of goes into one of my cons with this movie. The character of Kelly, she's a dick. She is a little dick. Now, I kind of see what they're trying, at least I think that's what we're trying to go with, is that Kelly is just she is a 12-year-old girl who's angry that her dad is not home a lot. But man, does she act so fucking stubborn, bratty, and antagonistic towards Ian for so much of this movie. Like the line when she says to him, "You like to have kids, you just don't like to raise them, huh?" Yo, that's a dick move. Like, fuck you, little turd.
Sick burn.
There is one little thing when that I did think was kind of funny. But for the record too, her stowing away in the first place on board the trailer.
It's so stupid.
That's a dick move in and of itself. It's also a big question. What the hell was she doing the whole time? Because like you can see she's made like a little bed of a blanket and a pillow. So it's like she was just stowing away inside that trailer and just hiding the whole time. But like, you got to ask, how the hell did she get on board? How the hell long was she staying back there? Where is she pissing and shitting? But and another one that pissed me off too, when Kelly's freaking out and is wanting to be taken somewhere safe, she's taken up to the hide. But then when Ian wants to go back to the ground to save Sarah and Nick, Ian's trying to comfort her. He's trying to reassure her, saying, "Hey, I'll be right back. I give you my word." Well, you never keep your word. Fuck you, little dick. I don't like Kelly very much. She's a 12-year-old little dick. Their father and daughter bond, though, I do think is pretty believable. A lot of people like really harp on Ian's white. Why does he have a black daughter? I think they make it pretty clear that she was adopted. So why is that a big deal? Whoop-de-fucking-do. Their father-daughter bond, when it is, parental and loving, it is pretty believable. So why is that a problem?
I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, me neither. Before we continue, another word from our sponsor. Con number 2.
So this movie has some really good dialogue, but there are parts of the movie where the dialogue is a little iffy. Just a little bit. Like I can't. Yeah, like I can't think of like any really good examples right now, but like off the top of my head, like I know Julianne Moore. They're running through the warehouse, and she's like, "Is the dinosaur still behind us?" And then boom, the T-Rex like comes through the wall, right? And it's like, yeah, the T-Rex is obviously
Obviously,
like,
yeah.
why are you like?
That's a cool moment though when you see that T-Rex just blast his way through that door. Like, holy fuck!
It is, but why did they have to write her? It's like a really stupid line to say when it's like
I think they're
obvious.
trying to make it funny.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't.
Dumb.
I didn't laugh. Instead, I was like, they didn't. That's not. They didn't need that line in there.
Ian, slow down a little. I don't think so. There's another one that's kind of dumb.
Yeah. Oh, there's a. I mean, I guess they were trying to be clever with this one, but they again near the warehouse. She's like, or they're trying to drive around like a building or something, and it's like, can you get to the other side faster? And Jeff Goldblum says something stupid, and then he just like drives through a wall. I don't know. Do you know what scene I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the dialogue, but I do remember thinking that was kind of dumb too. Yeah.
It's stuff like that. Like, it's okay because it's Jurassic Park. The rest of the movie is just so good. But it's just like at the especially the third act, there's just like the bad lines are piling on at some point. I was like, dang, what the heck? What the heck? You had good momentum going. Now you're like,
how are we gonna find the adult? Follow the screams.
Yeah, that too. Like, and that's the thing about Jeff Goldblum. It's like
he's funny.
He's a really good actor. He's really funny, but not every line he can perfectly deliver. You know what I mean? Like that line, I was like,
not everything needs to be a Jeff Goldblum meme one-liner.
Exactly. So I'm like, he delivers that line, and I'm like,
hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? Taking the kid. You really want to stop us? Shoot us.
Yeah, some of Jeff Goldblum's scenes could have used another take, but it's okay. It's Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, agreed. Speaking of Sarah, con number 2, Sarah in this movie is way too fucking stubborn. So here's another explanation for why I think Ian is so overly bitter and irritable for so much of this movie? Well, for one thing, he's surrounded by a bunch of smart-ass idiots, but he's got two women in his life who cannot listen to what he says to save their lives. Kelly and Sarah. Sarah in particular. So he's not being a controlling douchebag asshole by saying, hey, I don't want you here. I care about you. I don't want you to be torn apart by fucking dinosaurs. Please come home. I do not want you here. Please. But Sarah left and right is just saying no, 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 no. Now, granted, she has experience with predators. She is a paleontologist. She does know how to take care of herself. That's all well and good. But, the thing is with paleontology is that it's a lot of guesswork. It's a lot of theoretical work. Now, you could deduce that a lot of these theories are true just by comparing to modern animals. But that's another thing, too. A giant T-Rex is very different from a lion or a tiger. And especially with her going by herself is really fucking stupid. Straight up. So, and Julianne Moore does do a very good job playing Sarah. I do like Sarah for the most part as a character, but the first act that she's on screen, especially with the stegosaurs, like, why would you get so close to a bunch of 7-ton fully grown stegosaurs and start messing with one of their babies? Stegosaurs were herbivores, but they were still very dangerous animals. Yeah, Sarah is very frustrating and very stubborn for the first third of the movie that she's on screen. She's just a complete obstinate and defiant and oppositional bitch. But the scene with the T-Rex, I do feel like kind of humbles her, and she listens to reason and logic more for the rest of the movie. So that's appreciated, but it took a life or death situation for her to pull her head out of her ass. But sometimes I guess that's just what people need.
As it happens, as it happens.
Your last con?
This one you probably saw coming, but the T-Rex Rampage of San Diego. Too short.
Yeah, that's my last con. No, don't get me wrong. Of course it's entertaining. It's a T-Rex going on a rampage in a city. How's that not entertaining?
Yeah.
But the thing is, for me, it's the same problem I have with King Kong. Once Kong gets the civilization, I just don't care. Partially because I know the movie's almost over. But the main reason, I know this is such a weird complaint. Watching a giant monster go on a rampage in a city is a problem. But that's because all of the stuff on Isla Sorna is so good, so captivating, so entertaining, so well done, so awesome. Once they get to the mainland, it's just kind of boring by comparison. That's really the only reason why I don't like it. It's just not. I label it as disinteresting. I just kind of don't care. I appreciate that it's again Steven Spielberg channeling King Kong. I appreciate that. I see what he's doing. I just kind of don't care. I want to see more stuff on the island. That's one aspect of Jurassic Park that I really do like. The movie ends right as they're rescued, just like the first film. There's no scenes in the city. Cut and dry, just how I like it. But yeah, the T-Rex Rampage is, again, entertaining.
You could have taken, say, 5 minutes where from earlier in the movie where things were a little more slow, and utilized that 5 minutes for a couple more scenes in San Diego.
That is another thing too. It does feel a little rushed.
Yeah.
Like the last, because it's the last 20 minutes of the movie, and man, does it just fly by a million miles an hour. I agree. Yeah, they could have taken an extra 5 minutes or so to set up a little bit more stuff to be paid off in that last rampage. Now, again, some people could say that's a good thing. They just cut right to the chase, seeing a T-Rex go on a rampage
Sure.
in the city.
Sure.
For once, I kind of disagree, and I think they could have used a little bit more setup for that because it just feels so rushed. And especially like, this movie had a bigger budget than the first movie, and it's also at like 5 minutes longer than the first film. But yeah, the last 20 minutes just feel a little rushed. It's it's a little disappointing.
Oh well.
Yeah, oh well. This
well.
is still a great movie though, don't get me wrong. So it's
Yeah.
not a big problem. Um so what are your final thoughts on The Lost World Jurassic Park?
I think it's crazy that a lot of people really don't like the movie. Even some YouTubers I watch would say like they just don't dig the movie, and it's just like
Why?
yeah, why? I don't get it. I mean, I don't want to say it's inferior to the first Jurassic Park, but you got to understand Jurassic Park is like
It's just such a good movie. That's kind of a hard
exactly
act to follow.
a bar. Sometimes the bar is set too high, but if you still have a really solid, entertaining, fun sequel that expands upon the lore of what you initially liked, then I don't see why you would dislike it for like really trivial things. You know.
Yeah, I agree. The Lost World Jurassic Park is a fantastic film and a fantastic sequel. I'm not 100% sure I would say this is one of my favorite films of all time, but if I was to make a runner-up list, it probably would be on that list. Yeah, this is a great film. It's a great sequel. It does a lot of things right. And really, if we're being honest, the nitpicks and cons that we have with this movie aren't that consequential towards the rest of the film. They just kind of take it down just a few notches, but not to the point where it's like unwatchable or anything. This is a great movie. It's well made. It's very entertaining. It's very fun. It's just a great fucking movie. Which is why I will be giving this movie a very solid 9 out of 10. I think that's pretty fair. It's a great movie.
Okay.
Your rating?
Probably like 8.5.
Okay.
I mean, it's still pretty solid. I mean, because as much as I love the first Jurassic Park, I still think there are a lot of movies out there that are better than Jurassic Park in the first place. So I guess so. That's why I'm kind of like reserving 9 and 10 spots, but still 8 to 8.5 is still pretty good.
Yeah. And it's like I said when I reviewed the first Terminator movie with Trev. If you well, I mean, this is a little different, but like what you were saying about if the bar is set so high, sometimes if you can just manage to get almost there, that is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's like if a first-time director manages to get like a 90 to 95% right on his first try, that is an accomplishment in and of itself.
That's fair.
All righty. So that'll do it for this review. Anything to plug, Pierce?
Go subscribe to Cinematic Trash if you haven't already.
You need to get your ass in gear and start making some videos. Do a movie collection video, for Christ's sake.
I know. I have plans for this new channel that I'm gonna start. I have like a bunch of videos that I'm gonna do for that channel. I really don't know what I'm gonna do with cinematic trash, to be quite honest with you. I've thrown so much stuff on there, so much different stuff, and I'm like, it's more of like a chill kind of channel, you know.
Alrighty. Yeah, go check out Pierce's channel. Post your comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. Look forward to, of course, the next Jurassic Park review where I talk about the not as much maligned, but still kind of meh there part of the franchise with 2001's Jurassic Park 3. Look forward to that. And as always, remember, now you're John Hammond. And I will see you guys in the next video.
Yes, sir.